Thanks for joining us. Today we are going to be talking about a very sad case of a senseless triple killing. All this took place at the same time, but the bodies were not all in the same place. It was the night before Christmas and was so random and so meaningless. This is the story of Salvatore Belvedere and his brother Gianni Belvedere and Gianni's fiancée Ilona Flint. All this took place at a local mall in San Diego, California. Let's dive in.
A call came in from a member of the public about a foul smell coming from a green 2004 Toyota Camry that had been parked outside a fast food restaurant. Police were soon at the scene. The witness pointed them to the car. The smell was one that no officer forgets. They opened the trunk and inside they found a decomposing body. They ran the license plate and realized it was connected to a missing persons case and double murder from San Diego. Before long, homicide detectives from the San Diego Police Department were called out. This development was another confusing part to an already extremely odd story.
10 News begins with breaking news in the mystery of a double murder at Mission Valley Mall. In just the past 30 minutes, the medical examiner revealed the body found in the back of this car connected to the crime is a 24-year-old man and is listed as a victim of a homicide.
Let's go back to Christmas Eve 2013. 22-year-old Ilona Flint was finishing her shift at the Mission Valley Mall where she worked at the Cafe Jean shoe store. Places were open until 2 a.m. to cater for the Christmas shoppers. Her fiancé, 24-year-old Gianni Belvedere, was going to be picking her up. He always picked Ilona up as she didn't like driving. She clocked out at 12:22 a.m. She walked out into the parking lot. She waited and waited, but he never arrived. She called him but was met with no response. All her calls went unanswered. She decided to call Gianni's brother, 22-year-old Salvatore, known as Sal. He wasted no time and went straight over to the mall. Sal and Ilona sat in the parking lot and began calling around hospitals and jails, hoping Gianni would be there. 1:14 a.m. A 911 call was made.
Where are you? At the Mission Valley Mall.
It was Ilona, and she could be heard saying that she had been shot. The operator asked her where she was and she told them the Mission Valley Mall. Then the phone went quiet. Minutes after the call, officers were at the 1600 block of Camino del Rio North. They found the bodies of Sal and Ilona in Sal's black sedan. Ilona was slumped in the passenger seat, having sustained a gunshot wound to the back of the head. It was clear that nothing could be done to save her, and she was pronounced dead at the scene. Sal had been shot in the head and torso, and he was quickly taken to the hospital. The scene was closed off as crime scene investigators began to go through it. 22 caliber shell casings were found in the car, but there was nothing to point towards a suspect or motive. According to the emergency dispatch audio, witnesses told the operator that they saw a man walking from the back away from the victim's car, getting into a different vehicle and driving off. Sal and Ilona had been shot and Gianni was missing. This was already a perplexing crime.
Well, Kim, this is where it all went down here in the Mission Valley Mall parking lot. Ilona Flint, Salvatore Belvedere gunned down in cold blood. But what happened afterwards still remains a mystery tonight. Was there more than one person involved in the shootings? Was Gianni Belvedere involved at all? Shortly after Ilona Flint dialed 911 early Christmas Eve morning from inside this car in the Mission Valley Mall parking lot, a San Diego police dispatcher relayed to officers on patrol what she had said to them just moments before.
The female that yelled she was shot and no further.
When police arrived on scene,
We're going to have 2 victims on a 245 shooting.
they found Ilona dead from a gunshot wound to the head, and Salvatore Belvedere clinging to life after he too had been shot. In addition to the 2 shooting victims, police also came in contact with witnesses.
Our witnesses here saw a male walking from the back of the victim's vehicle and get into the car and drive away. So it's good possible that they got in the car, but it's not for sure.
But the suspect description one or more witnesses gave police did not match that of Gianni Belvedere, Ilona's fiancé, Salvatore's brother, who family members say was there around the time of the shooting but has been missing ever since.
Johnny, if you're watching this, or if anyone knows where our brother Johnny might be, please, we need him to come home. We love you and miss you very much. Mom and Dad need you more than ever.
Family members held hands and shed tears as they begged for any information about this man, 24-year-old Gianni Belvedere.
Gianni and Ilona had known each other for 7 years after meeting in Provo, Utah, when they were both still in high school. Ilona was originally from Russia and was 15 years old when she met him. They fell in love and became engaged, and after Gianni moved to San Diego, Ilona soon moved out to be with him. Sal and Gianni worked at a family Italian restaurant and lived at home with their family. They were funny and musical, and the three were described as best friends. Sal had been immediately taken to the hospital after suffering serious gunshot wounds, and just a few days later, he would tragically pass away from his injuries. 2 people were now dead, and another was missing, and the police had no answers. Knowing it was a race against time, police put out a missing persons bulletin for Gianni. He was described as an Italian-American man with brown hair and brown eyes, 6 feet tall, 165 pounds, and likely driving a 4-door dark green 2004 Toyota Camry with a Utah license plate.
And back out here live, police say both the Belvedere and Flint families are cooperating with this investigation. At the same time, if you have any information as to the whereabouts of Gianni Belvedere, you're asked to call police. That's the latest for now. Reporting live tonight from Mission Valley, Preston Phillips, 10 News.
2 weeks after the shooting, investigators said there had still been no sightings of or word from Gianni. STPD Lieutenant Mike Hastings said this was one of the most unusual cases he had ever seen in his 20 years of service. The police were at a loss. His phone had not been used and neither had his credit cards. This was painting a very dark picture. One theory detectives initially looked at was a potential love triangle, but that was swiftly ruled out by family members and friends, with them saying there was no way Gianni would have hurt Sal or Ilona. Everybody we talked to who knew Gianni said that that was not his personality, said San Diego County Deputy District Attorney Brian Erickson. There was a lot of idiotic speculation that Gianni had something to do with the shooting, or that he had possibly harmed himself, that he might have fled, that he was in a jealous rage and did this, said one of Ilona's friends, Andre. Anyone who knows Gianni and Ilona's relationship completely understands that there is no possible way that that could have ever happened. She was with Gianni for a very long time, they loved each other deeply, and she really cared about Sal, he added. When detectives looked at Gianni's cell phone records, they found that his phone had gone off at 11:45 p.m. that night, and had not been switched back on. Ilona's phone records showed that she had messaged Gianni just before the shooting, but he had never responded. Police also discovered that just 3 minutes after Ilona's call was made to 911, an employee from the mall also made a call. She had seen a man standing by the driver's side window before they drove away. The car matched the description of Gianni's vehicle. Lieutenant Hastings held a briefing and described the possible suspect they were looking for. A male wearing tan-color pants between 5'9" and 5'11".
This is the parking lot where Ilona Flint was shot and killed early Tuesday morning. Yet this is not the place that her friends and family want her to be remembered. That's why they went to La Jolla Shores tonight, one of her favorite places.
We're all in this boat of we don't know what's going on. We just don't know, and it is mind-blowing how little information there is out there. It is eating me up, and I just don't know.
Gianni and Sal Belvedere's sister cried as she told a crowd of 150 people what her brothers mean to her.
Johnny, if you're listening, we know you have a broken heart. Come home to us.
Investigators kept coming back to the idea of motive. In looking through the evidence at the scene, it does not appear that any sort of robbery took place during the incident, said Lieutenant Hastings. And with still no word from Gianni, a huge piece of the puzzle was missing. But on the 17th of January 2014, everything would change.
The odor is pretty strong, like when I pass by it.
Could it be the end to the search for 24-year-old Gianni Belvedere, or the beginning for investigators trying to piece together how a body ended up in the trunk of this Camry in a fast food parking lot in Riverside, discovered when passersby alerted police to the overwhelming smell coming from it?
A call came in regarding a car parked outside a fast food restaurant, with a horrendous smell coming from it. There was blood on the passenger seat, and in the trunk they found the decomposing remains of Gianni Belvedere. By his body, cans of air freshener with the triggers taped down so they would constantly emit a smell were found, alongside boxes of baking soda. He had been dead for several weeks and had a gunshot wound behind his left ear. The bullet had come from the same gun that had killed Ilona and Sal. This had now become a triple homicide. An autopsy was scheduled for the following week to determine an exact cause of death. On the 24th of January, STPD Lieutenant Mike Hastings released more details about the possible suspect seen at the mall on the night of the murders.
The person of interest that we are looking for is a unknown race male, 5'10" to 6 feet tall, wearing a black hoodie that has unique white bands around the sleeves up in the bicep area. I understand the want for information in this case, and I understand that the significance of giving you information so that the people of San Diego are comforted that something's being done. I can assure you that if this case can be solved, this case will be solved.
Investigators were able to extract a sample of DNA from the tape that had been used on the air fresheners. It was run through the combined DNA index system known as CODIS. They were hoping that they would find a match somewhere if the killer had been arrested before. Less than 24 hours later, they would have the break they had been looking for. At an interior border patrol checkpoint in San Clemente, California, a man was stopped. He had in his possession a staggering amount of weapons, hundreds of rounds of ammo, a homemade silencer, an AR-15 style assault rifle, a .45 caliber handgun, and a .22 caliber pistol with a threaded barrel. He was quickly identified as a 29-year-old named Carlo Mercado, and he was the registered owner of 2 of the weapons. The guns were confiscated and he was released then and there. But the California Department of Justice and special agents began to build their case against him for the illegal .22 caliber gun, the ammo and the silencer, and they made sure to keep an eye on him. Finally, in April, he was charged with the offenses relating to the illegal weapons, and as part of a plea deal, he pleaded guilty to having the silencer. His DNA was taken and uploaded to CODIS. Nobody could believe when it came back as a match to an active investigation, the triple homicide at the Mission Valley Mall. Detectives in San Diego got in touch with the special agent who had seized the weapons. Through ballistics analysis, they were able to find that the .22 caliber gun that had been taken was the same one that had been used to murder Ilona, Gianni, and Sal. Further investigations revealed his cell phone had also been at the scene. On the 20th of June 2014, Carlo was taken into custody and booked in at 7:24 a.m. Investigators were able to determine that neither the accused nor all of the victims' phones were in the same place at the same time in the year leading up to the killings. They didn't know their alleged killer at all. The day after his arrest, Carlo's lawyer said he adamantly denied any involvement in the case. Carlo Mercado was charged with 3 counts of murder. The following 2.5 years would be taken up with legal proceedings and competency hearings. His lawyer told the court that he was incompetent to stand trial. On the 2nd of September 2014, his preliminary hearing was held and new details were released, including the DNA evidence that had led to his arrest. The following day, a judge ruled that the evidence presented was enough for him to go to trial for the 3 counts of murder. A couple of weeks later, a judge ordered that he be held without bond so that a mental competency exam could take place. Then, on the 3rd of November, Judge Joseph P. Brannigan found that he was not fit to stand trial and ordered that he be sent to Patton State Hospital for 3 years, or until he was able to assist in his own defense.
Showing very little emotion, Carlo Mercado just stared as the results of his competency hearing were released. A county psychiatrist believes Mercado is not competent enough to stand trial. After hearing this, the prosecutor asked the judge for a week continuance as he sorts through the details of the report and figures out where to go next with the case. Mercado is accused of murdering Ilona Flint and brothers Sal and Gianni Belvedere. Though the prosecutor wouldn't go into details of the report, in Mercado's last court appearance, we learned more about his interests. There is evidence that links Mercado to watching movies about hitmen. He had a cell phone that had a display name of The Assassin, and on his cell phone calendar, on the date of the murders, R.I.P.
This would all change, though, on the 14th of December 2015, when a judge disagreed and ruled that Carlo Mercado was fit to stand trial.
After 2 days of testimony in the Christmas Eve murders that shocked San Diego, Carlo Mercado has been ordered to stand trial.
Carlo Mercado looked down through most of this second day of testimony against him. As we learned, it was his DNA found on a Febreze bottle next to the body of Gianni Belvedere. A forensics expert who studied one of Mercado's cell phones dropped the first bombshell of the day.
What was listed on the calendar for December 24th of 2013?
On that date, there was a single entry, R.I.P.
The next bombshell came when we learned about another of Mercado's phones.
There was an iPhone 1 that had the device name and display name of assassin.
And on his computer, evidence of a search for a particular type of movie.
They all had to do with like hitman or assassin type characters.
I think what this court's left with is more questions than answers.
But the judge had heard enough. She ordered Carlo Mercado to stand trial on all 3 murders.
In the Belvedere home in El Cajon, these photos make up a Christmas memorial.
We have to relive this nightmare over again.
During the investigation, the Belvederes say police told them there was no surveillance video because the cameras were not working.
Why are there no cameras working? And especially during Christmas.
It was unbelievable. I couldn't fathom.
The Belvederes and Flint's mother have filed suit against Westfield, alleging a lack of security, from the malfunctioning cameras to bad lighting.
The Belvederes are hoping for new legislation mandating better security in shopping centers. We reached out to Westfield, but so far we haven't heard back.
On the 18th of February 2016, the Deputy DA Brian Erickson said that the DA's office would be seeking the death penalty against Carlo. A few months later, on the 26th of July, there would be breaking news. Carlo was hospitalized following an overdose in his cell. It wasn't fatal, and he was released from hospital after around a month. Carlo Mercado had originally pleaded not guilty, being adamant that he had had nothing to do with what had happened at the Mission Valley Mall. But this too would soon change. Carlo Mercado changed his plea. He pleaded guilty to 3 counts of murder. This guilty plea meant that he avoided the death penalty. It was now time to present what they believed had happened that night. Carlo was riding his motorcycle by the Westfield Mission Valley Mall when it broke down. It was reported that he may have got into an argument or an altercation with Gianni over an unknown issue, or attempted to carjack him. Carlo pulled out the gun and shot Gianni while he was on the phone. After shooting him, he pushed him into the passenger seat where Gianni continued to bleed out. The prosecutor said that he then drove the car in the direction of his home and stopped to get gas. Carlo's DNA was found on the gas cap of the car. Around 90 minutes later, he drove back to the mall. What he didn't realize was that Sal and Ilona would be there. They were looking for Gianni after he had seemingly failed to arrive, panicking and calling various hospitals and police stations. Ilona and Sal saw his Toyota cruising around the lot, and it was obvious that something was not right. They quickly realized that Gianni was not behind the wheel, and Ilona called 911. They confronted me because I had Gianni Belvedere's car, Carlo later said in a written statement. The .22 caliber had the silencer equipped, so the gunshots could not be heard on the call to the police. San Diego County Deputy District Attorney Brian Erickson said that this was a random act of violence. Gianni, Salvatore and Ilona had nothing to do with their demise, had nothing to do with them being murdered. And I know people have had a hard time accepting that because they think, oh, they must have done something. They didn't. They didn't do anything. This could have been any one of us in that parking lot that night. Investigators had also found evidence that suggested Carlo had a series of motorcycle accidents, and he had attempted to obtain money from other drivers involved. One incident had taken place in August of 2012, when he had ridden his bike into the back of a man's truck, and then sent what was referred to as an aggressive email, where the parts of the motorbike were listed alongside the prices. Carlo told the other driver that the total had come out to more than $2,000, but said he would be willing to settle the matter for half of that. A San Diego district attorney investigator got in touch with the other driver, who said that Carlo had crashed into the back of him while he sat at a stoplight. After receiving the email, he spoke to his father and insurance provider, who said he would not be responsible for the costs that Carlo demanded. He subsequently ignored the email and text messages that followed. It was also revealed that a matter of days after the killings, he had filed a false insurance claim on his bike. After he had fled the scene, he went back the next day to retrieve his bike with a U-Haul truck and trailer, only going back once the investigators had left. His motorcycle had fallen off the back of the truck, and he later filed the online claim saying he had been in an accident. The insurance adjuster that handled the claim told those investigating that he had doubted Carlo's story, but processed the claim anyway, totaling $2,539. Although there were many unanswered questions, one thing was clear: this was obviously a random and brutal act of violence. As he had now pleaded guilty, it was time for him to be sentenced, and San Diego Judge Frederick Link handed down 3 consecutive life terms. Carlo showed no emotion as he was given his sentence. He was given the chance to talk to the families of the victims. He replied, "No," and said nothing further. Sal and Gianni's sister Antoinette read a letter out in court on behalf of their mother. The unbearable pain is to stay. For all of these difficult and heartbreaking years, 3 years that felt like 30. May God continue to grant me the grace and courage and strength to somehow endure. The letter also spoke of her son's musical talents, and how they would perform for Sunday night dinners. Now it's quiet. The laughter and loudness have been replaced by silence and sorrow. Ilona's mother Inga said that her daughter's life had had so much promise. The family also brought photos of Ilona, Sal and Gianni to court, and the judge ordered Carlo to look at them. Whilst a guilty plea could never bring the three of them back, it did finally mark an end to proceedings. Today's guilty plea holds the defendant accountable and is a small measure of justice for the families of the victims, allowing them to avoid the emotional toll of a lengthy trial, said District Attorney Bonnie DeManis. This case was enormous and so many officers and agencies had worked hard to bring the killer to justice. Perhaps the thing that makes it most devastating was that it was completely random and senseless. The holiday season should be a time of joy and celebration, a time to be with family and loved ones and get ready for what's coming in the new year. But tragically for those left behind, it will always serve as a reminder of what was taken from them that night. 3 incredible human beings that still had so much more to do, so much more to see, and the rest of their lives still to live.
Join us again next time when we dive into another case. Please comment and let us know your thoughts. Thanks.